The Closed Sky is intended for adult audiences. Listener discretion is advised. The Closed Sky, Part 3. Neva's survey kit shifts against my hip every time the rail takes a corner, and I have not yet found the angle that makes it sit right. The Undercity moves around me anyway, at its own pace and on its own terms. The route to the tangle is one I could travel half asleep, and on some mornings I more or less do. This is not one of those mornings. The working day unfolds around me, whether I am ready for it or not. I have my bag, the commission I have been turning over since Adès entrusted it to me, and a weight I have not managed to correct. Between transfers, I scan the crowd and the platforms at each stop, and when a seat opens up, I read, nose buried in the settling record, in deliberate ignorance of everything else. The last transfer is always the same, off the rail at Deepmaw, onto the kelp-drawn runner, where the leyline rail runs deep and fast on fixed leyline traction. The runner moves at corridor level, drawn through its channel groove by the pull of kelp cord mechanism, open to the corridor around it, stopping where people need it to stop. Older than the rail by 2 centuries, and considerably less interested in a rider's comfort. It is much smaller than the rail carriages, the ceiling lower, the handrails closer together, the kind of close where brushing another rider when the car fills is not rudeness, but geometry. I scan the carriage for a seat as I move past the other standing riders. I find one. It is beside a mother whose child is mid-tantrum, red-faced and committed to it, screaming at a pitch that has the nearest riders subtly angling away. I consider the seat for a moment, then conclude that no reading would survive the proximity and take a handrail instead. I find my footing as the runner moves on. The warm orange of the stone sky comes through the windows in long, low bars that sweep across the carriage as the runner rumbles through the Deepmaw Quarters corridors toward the tangle's outer approach. The sight through the window is familiar in the way a place only becomes when you have moved away and returned often enough, over enough spans, to carry 2 versions of it at once, the one you grew up within and the one you observe now from the distance of someone who chose to leave. The corridor slides past in pieces. A vendor at the compact row corner works a warm-hold rack of Crevel, attending to 2 teenagers at the front of the stall with the unhurried efficiency of someone who has handled this exact exchange in this exact spot for years. One of them digs through a small tender pouch with the concentration of someone who has not yet decided how much they want to spend. The sharp rattle of shards against lenses, carrying even over the runner's rumble, the glaze on the rack catching the stone sky's orange, shimmering as if it wants to be eaten. The smell reaches me before the runner passes, and my mouth waters. 2 practitioners draw my attention as the runner continues on, exiting a supply shop mid-argument over something one of them holds up, a tool of some kind, its function unclear from here. One shakes their head with the distinctly tired conviction of someone who has already done so with this same problem before and has nearly exhausted the will to keep doing it. At an independent stall, a woman with a child balanced on her hip stops at the vendor's display. The stall runs Beldris, alongside sealed cups of what the vendor sells as restoratives, a category that covers everything from Velund moss steeps to whatever the Deepmaw vendors have been blending since before I was old enough to ask what was in it. Beldris, draw-dried strips of deep-root cultivar, pressed flat and cut short, tough and slightly bitter in the Deepmaw regional way, unmistakable in flavor. I remember it as something my mother would try to coax me into eating, insisting it was good for me. I can feel my face twist at the thought. Standard food for darker days. The woman holds up 2 fingers and points to the small wooden menu. The merchant says something. She pulls her line card from her coat pocket, presses her thumb to its impression surface, and extends the card toward his wrist. He turns his inner wrist up to meet it, the hydrocyte terminal set flush beneath the skin, catching the stone sky's orange for a beat before the transaction settles. The vendor passes her 2 prepared paper bags. The child reaches for one immediately, digs in, and takes a bite before the woman tucks the second bag into the purse at her hip. The runner carries me on before I see how it ends. Farther along, an older man and woman sit together on a threshold step. The man leans forward, one elbow on his thigh, his head resting against the palm of his hand, while his other holds a crystal communicator, his thumb moving across the surface in a deliberate way, as if searching for something. The woman beside him leans in close, watching the screen as he works, her shoulder against his in that comfortable, familiar way. She says something, and he tilts the communicator slightly in her direction. Whatever they are discussing, the runner's rumble eats it before it reaches me. I slide past all of it under the stone sky's warm orange, the district moving at its own pace, the rhythm of a community that has been here long enough to have opinions about newcomers and warmth enough eventually for the ones who stay. The runner stops, people board. Those standing shift to make room as new riders press in, and the runner moves on. I adjust my grip on the handrail as the runner's weight redistributes. One stop to the tangle's outer approach. I reach into my bag for my impression tablet binder. Then the man is simply there on my left, where no one had been a moment before. He is gaunt, pale-haired, the long strands of it hanging without arrangement around a face that has been through something and carries the record of it, a scar that has pulled the left side of his mouth out of alignment, the tissue raised and uneven in the way of old damage that was not properly treated. One eye is milky, the iris white, the pupil swallowed entirely. The other is augmented, the iris replaced with a void dark composite that catches no light, the way a natural eye would, a white ring at its center the only point of luminescence. His face is dirty, and whatever smell lingers off him has reached the man on his other side, who has angled himself away with the careful, deliberate subtlety of someone who does not want to be noticed doing it. I note all of this the way I note a structural fault, carefully, with the attention of someone who wants to understand what they are looking at before it becomes a problem. Both eyes are fixed on me. He does not blink. He does not look away. Neither do I. His field moves against mine the way a crack moves through stone, slow, deliberate, following the path of least resistance, looking for the place where the structure gives. I reinforce without deciding to. My jaw sets. "Can I help you?" I say, and take a half step back, as much as the carriage allows. He tilts his head as though my question requires contemplation, then quietly, "You look just like him." Something shifts in his expression, not softness, something that has fondness in it and grief living underneath. "Him who?" I ask. I reach for the cord and pull it without looking away from him. The ding sounds. His hand moves toward me. I slap it back before I have decided to. "Don't touch me." He looks at his hand, then he looks at me, then he smiles, wide and unhurried. His gums are black and wet, receded far enough that his teeth sit too long in his mouth, yellowed to the root. "Are you Lorcan's daughter?" He steps closer. I step back and bump into the rider behind me, and I turn just long enough to mumble an apology before he speaks again. "You look just like him." The The runner stops. I move for the doors with more urgency than dignity, and I do not look back until I am on the platform and the doors have closed between us. When I turn back to look into the runner, he is still there, still watching. He raises one hand and waves as the runner pulls away. I stand on the platform and do not move until the sound of it has gone. My mind is stuck on the name the man said, Lorcan. Lorcan is my father's name. Was he friends with a man like that? My father did know a lot of what I would consider shady people. I feel my field loosen the further away the runner gets, and I move to the stop bench, remove my bag, and sit down. The name sits like a stone at the center of my chest. Lorcan. Did my father really know a man like that? Someone that far outside the margins of what I would consider safe company? I suppose it would not be the first surprise my father left behind. He kept associations I was never introduced to, and I was old enough to notice that without being old enough to ask about it. I had filed it and left it there. I stare into the tangle's opening and let the stone do its work, the sound of it, the smell of it, the specific weight of corridor rock that has been holding itself together for longer than anyone has been keeping count. It is the only thing that has ever reliably settled me. When my breathing evens out, I press my hand flat against the bench and let my attention follow it. The bench sits directly across from the entrance, placed by someone who understood that a person waiting here would want to see what was coming before it arrived. I settle back into the bench and look around. The runner stop bench is the same as it has always been. Smooth, worn stone in its base and frame. The wood panels of the seat worn soft with years of use. The prismboard mounted above it in warm orange that matches the stone sky. The channel groove running in front of it at exactly the depth that a child's boot toe learns quickly to clear after losing part of a shoe to it. I always stop at this bench when I come to the tangle, though usually with less need to. I am not sure when it became a habit, but I have been doing it long enough that skipping it would feel like arriving wrong. The treated wood is the temperature of something that has absorbed heat for years and given up on ever becoming properly warm. Not cold exactly, not warm either. The particular not quite temperature of wood that has never once seen the sun. I recall sitting here on school mornings when the runner was running late, already calculating whether I would make it before the bell. I sat here during the deep beats when the noise in the apartment became the specific kind of loud that is better left behind. I sat here with Rael on the left end, our shoulders touching in that easy, unconscious way of two people who had long since stopped managing the distance between them. We were 16, the stone sky doing what it always does, turning everything warm orange, which she said made my hair look like it was on fire. And I said that was a strange thing to find appealing, and she clarified that she did not find it appealing. She found it accurate, which somehow made me fall harder for her, and I laughed until I ran out of breath. We shared our first kiss that same evening. Her parents were Omer expression purists, traditional water practitioners who treat expression inheritance as seriously as some families treat bloodlines. In their reckoning, water is meant to pair with water, and earth is meant to stay with earth. When they discovered I was Thalon expression, the element they consider the structural opposite of their own, they used the word incompatible 3 times in one conversation. I read it for what it was, the sort of disapproval that has already made up its mind and is not interested in anyone's personal opinion but their own. We fought against the weight of that disapproval for a span, until it became something neither of us could carry alongside the other. An unscalable wall had been built around her until she broke through it herself and chose no contact with her parents, or at least that is what reached me through the dross line on one of the evenings I decided to tune in, when I happened to catch what turned out to be a controversial documentary. Her story was one of 13 the program held up as proof that some walls are worth dismantling. She is, as far as I have gathered from the circle's less formal information channels, one of the highest paid courtesans in the Luster Lane Quarter, the kind whose appointment list stretches for months, and whose name is known among the quarter with the quiet respect reserved for those who have become exactly who they wanted to be. Her parents raised her to understand that some things were incompatible. She drew her own conclusions about what those things were. I am pulled from my thoughts by the ding of an approaching runner and decide I should get moving. I reach into my bag and spend a few counts rearranging what I can around Neva's kit, shifting the field slate and rolls of clothes to the left, the charcoal rolls to the right, trying to redistribute the weight. The bag does not cooperate. I pull out my impression tablet binder and accept the situation. Might as well track the route to the estate for the record. I open the binder to a fresh tablet and press my field into the wax. It softens under the impression, receiving the mark cleanly. 15th beat of Arden, the tangle's outer approach. The notation sets in the upper left corner, dark against pale wax, the kind of light impression that holds its shape until it is wiped and the tablet returns to blank. I close the binder, loop my bag over my shoulder, and stand. The bag settles against my hip exactly as badly as before. I open the binder again and scan the area the way I always do when I begin a route notation, pulling geometry, assessing the load in the corridor walls as I extend my field outward to read the wear patterns on the stone around me. I know this stretch better than I think I know myself. The impression builds into the wax as I work, precise and clean, the map taking shape as I note the area around me. Satisfied, I decided to wait for the approaching runner to stop and move on before making my way across and into the tangle's entrance. Passengers exit the runner a few steps away from the bench, with footsteps approaching in my direction. I turn my head. A few people come from the direction of the runner platform. My eyes move across them without interest until something snags and pulls them back. I look again to confirm what I think I saw. Yes, it is her. I watch her approach, the way you watch a senior colleague you have been successfully avoiding, right up until the moment they appear directly in your path, with no avenue of retreat, and the only thing left to do is stand there with the weariness of someone who has been managing the day's damage one thing at a time and has just been handed one more thing. She strides toward me with the easy confidence I remember from the circle, all height and unhurried momentum. I drink her in before I realize I am doing it. The easy, settled carry of her weight, the particular build of a practitioner who has spent her professional life trusting her balance through corridors that most surveyors would not touch, a dark survey coat in the compact's cut, worn with the casual authority of gear that has genuinely been in the field, a single field bag positioned the way a delver would, high and close, and dark, wavy hair gathered into a careless bun that somehow works. I am still taking inventory when her eyes find mine. Her eyes are amber, and something like recognition blooms across her face. She scans me the way she probably assesses everything, with the unhurried focus of a practitioner who has spent her career reading spaces and the people standing in them. She has worked classified commissions before, and the edge in her eyes is the proof of it. I know that look. I have been told I have that look by junior practitioners in the circle. I also know who recommended Neva Korath for the commission I am now carrying, and I know that Neva mentioned this woman's name more than once in the weeks before she disappeared, always with the brevity of someone who decides, mid-sentence, not to continue. I filed it then, without looking at it. The file is out of the cabinet now, in the annoying way of something that has heard its own name called somewhere it was not meant to be, and I am running out of places to stuff it. My field tightens around me, and my pulse does something I could file as anger if I had the energy to file it at all. Crimsyn Vault stops beside me. She is looking down, and I am looking up, and I have not broken eye contact, and it takes me longer than it should to look away. Luan Orveth, right? Her voice is warm, the kind of warmth that would have caught me off guard on any other day. Yes, I say. The word comes out sharper than I intend. Crimsyn turns to me, her gloved hand outstretched. Good to meet you, she says, her smile warm, which somehow makes me angrier. I turn as casually as I can manage and take her hand. Her hand meets mine with a firmness that is precise rather than aggressive, the kind that comes from structure rather than effort, the density of something built rather than simply grown, though I cannot place its particulars from a handshake alone. What I can place is the absence. No field meets mine at the boundary. There is only the contact itself, and where an elemental signature would be, there is nothing. My own field, which has been drawn tight since the runner, finds nothing to push against. It does not know what to do with that. It simply sits at the boundary, and something at the edge of my anger goes quiet in a way I did not ask for. I let go and turn back toward the tangle. The runner has cleared the path ahead. The entrance archway is wide enough for a crowd to pass through comfortably, though the corridors beyond narrow quickly to the width of two people walking side by side. Stone archways in the warm amber of natural glowstone crystal, deeper and older than anything the city installed. I have walked through this archway more times than I have counted, though I have never walked through it like this, bag sitting wrong, pulse still uneven, and a stranger at my shoulder whose name has been living in a cabinet that now won't stay closed. I can see Crimsyn watching me from the corner of my eye. She rocks back on her heel, unhurried, as though she has nowhere to be and has decided to stick around, which I find irritating. I start walking toward the tangle. She falls into step behind me without being invited. We might as well walk together. I stop. I turn. I look up at her. What? The word comes out with more edge than I intended, which is becoming a pattern today. The commission. She tilts her head, a small angle of genuine inquiry. We are going the same way. Did Ades not tell you? What? I close my impression tablet binder and shift it under my arm. I pull the echo clip from my hip and pull up the message screen. One unread. Ades. The timestamp reads a beat earlier. Last beat change. Crimsyn Vault is joining the commission. Client's order. Confirm receipt. I look up. Crimsyn is watching me with her amber eyes and her small smile, the one that has not moved since she arrived, and I find myself noting this the way I note a structural anomaly, something that is holding its position under conditions that would shift most things. I look back down. Shit, I say, quietly enough that I intend it for myself. My thumb moves to reply. My mind goes blank the way it does when it has run out of responses, and the only thing left is the professional one. I hold the device and push the single word through my field. It sends. Understood. I clip the echo clip back to my hip. I do not look at Crimsyn again. Not yet. She walks past me toward the tangle's outer approach, unhurried, her field bag settling high and close as she moves, and I watch her go for exactly 1 count before I reluctantly follow. As I step under the archway, the glowstone light shifts from the stone sky's warm orange to the older amber of natural crystal, and I am still trying to shove my emotions back into the cabinet they belong in when the words leave my mouth before I have cleared them for release. Did you know? Crimsyn stops. She turns to face me and the smile is still there. I look at Crimsyn and she looks back, saying nothing, waiting. The last time I saw Crimsyn vault, I did not see Crimsyn vault. I saw Neva, and Crimsyn happened to be there with her, 2 months before the commission, close together in the way of people who are more acquainted than I found personally comfortable. Neva's face turned toward her. Neva smiled in the private way she had for things she had not decided to share. I walked past it and filed it under things I was not prepared to see, hating that I had seen it at all. Did you know Neva was in danger? My voice comes out uneven. I know this is going to cost me something. I need to know anyway. The smile leaves Crimsyn's face. Not slowly, all at once. Something moves behind her eyes, not calculation, not deflection. She goes still. The kind of stillness that belongs to a practitioner who has stopped managing herself because what she has just been asked cannot be reasoned with or charmed away. No, the word comes out quieter than her previous register, stripped of the confidence she presented earlier. I did not know she was in danger. She lifts her hands and runs them over her face. It is the first thing I have seen her do that does not look rehearsed. If I had known. She stops. She does not finish. She looks at me directly, and her eyes, in the glowstone light, are steady and unguarded, holding something I do not have a name for, and am not sure she would give me one if I asked, and says simply, I did not know. The tears arrive before I can stop them, which angers me, because once they start, I do not know how to make them stop. Emotions roll out of the cabinet I have built for them, and I do not have the energy to push them back in. I am already pressing my hands against my eyes, pushing the tears away in frustration, while trying to remember that my impression tablet binder is under my arm, so I do not drop it. Today's not my day. I am still swiping tears away when Crimsyn crosses the distance between us and wraps her arms around me. My body goes still. One full breath of not knowing what to do with this. Then something in me gives. I have not been held by anyone in over a span, and I can feel my body soften against my better judgment. A span is a long time. She is warm. She smells of deep earth, the damp mineral warmth of a practitioner whose work takes her below the lower causeways, where the stone is older and wetter, and remembers things the upper corridors have allowed themselves to forget. I know that smell from survey work, from the cold rooms of deep commission sites. I have always found it soothing. She does not say anything. She does not pat me, offer a word, or try to make it smaller than it is. She simply holds on, with the steady pressure of someone who has decided this is the right thing and is not going to rush it. I note that I am leaning into her. My field, which has been drawn tight since the runner, releases a fraction. I do not think she can feel it, but she pulls me in slightly closer, and I do not know what in her registered the shift, only that something did. I hear people pass by and say something that misreads the situation. I can feel my face flush. I step back, adjusting myself awkwardly as I stare at the ground. She lets me go without comment, without making it a moment she needs acknowledged. I look up cautiously. She has already stepped back and turned toward the corridor ahead, her field bag resettling on her shoulder, and she does not look at me yet. It is the kindest thing she could have done. "We should go," Crimsyn says over her shoulder. I follow, which is the most I can manage, without letting my voice give me away. The Closed Sky is an original dark fantasy audio series by LeonaCrimsyn. If you want to know what happens next, follow the Crimsyn archives and come back when the next part drops. Thanks for listening. Until next time.